the past days, she shared her testimony about how Baltazar paid her a large amount of money to engage in sexual activities, but this woman refuses. Listen to how she explained it.
It began like any other day in the fast-paced world of high-profile business meetings and social events. I was invited to a lavish dinner at an upscale restaurant in the heart of the city. The setting was elegant, the atmosphere luxurious, and the conversation flowed easily. The man sitting across from me was none other than Baltazar, a wealthy businessman with a reputation for being both powerful and charismatic. Our initial interactions were polite and professional. Baltazar was charming, well-spoken, and seemed genuinely interested in discussing various topics, from business ventures to personal philosophies. But as the evening wore on, it became clear that there was more to this dinner than just a casual exchange of pleasantries. As the main course was cleared away, Baltazar's tone shifted, and he leaned in closer. "I want to make you an offer," he said, his voice dropping to a more intimate level. At first, I thought he was talking about a business proposal, something to do with investments or collaborations. But what came next was beyond anything I could have imagined. "I'll give you a substantial amount of money," he continued, "the figure that could change your life. In exchange, I want you to sleep with me." The words hung in the air, and for a moment I was stunned into silence. It was as if the world around us had paused. I had always known that money could sometimes cloud judgment, but I never expected to be directly confronted with such an explicit, transactional offer. Baltazar wasn't being subtle, he was very direct. The amount he proposed was enormous, a sum that could fulfill virtually any material desire I could ever have. But as he spoke, it became clear that his intentions were not just business-related. This wasn't a professional deal. It was personal, and it was predicated on something that felt completely out of line with my values. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my thoughts. Despite the shock, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I looked him in the eyes and calmly, yet firmly, said no. "No amount of money can buy my dignity," I told him. "I am not for sale, no matter how tempting the offer might be." Baltazar's reaction was unexpected. There was a brief moment of silence before he leaned back in his chair, a look of disappointment crossing his face. He didn't argue or pressure me further, instead, he quietly accepted the rejection, though the tension in the air remained palpable. As the evening came to a close, I left the restaurant with a sense of both relief and disbelief. On one hand, I was proud of my decision to stand firm in my principles. On the other hand, I couldn't help but reflect on the unsettling nature of the encounter. What had started as a normal dinner turned into a reminder of how power and wealth can sometimes lead people to feel entitled to others in ways that cross boundaries. Baltazar's offer was a stark illustration of the way money can distort reality, attempting to transform human connections into mere transactions. Since then, I've been left with a lot to think about. My experience has made me acutely aware of the ways in which individuals in positions of power can manipulate situations, even in the most unexpected ways. But it's also reinforced a truth I hold dear: money can buy a lot of things, but it cannot buy respect, dignity, or personal boundaries. The days following that dinner were filled with mixed emotions. On the surface, life carried on as usual, but beneath it all, I couldn't stop thinking about the offer and what it had represented. Baltazar's proposal was not just about money, it was about power, control, and the manipulation of a situation in a way that made me question the very nature of human interactions in high society. While the wealth and power he wielded were undeniable, his offer exposed a disturbing truth: there are some people who believe that their status gives them the right to cross personal boundaries. It was a chilling reminder of how often people, particularly those with immense resources, see others as commodities rather than individuals with their own autonomy and dignity. I realized that in rejecting him, I had made a choice that went beyond the financial. It was a statement, one that reaffirmed my belief that integrity and self-respect are worth more than any material possession. But at the same time, I wondered how many others, under different circumstances, might have succumbed to the temptation. How many people might have accepted such an offer, rationalizing it as a means to an end or a way to gain something beyond what money can usually buy. The incident also made me reflect on how power dynamics work in relationships, especially when money is involved. In this case, it was clear that Baltazar thought that his wealth could buy not just affection, but my very self. He had assumed that the sum he offered would be enough to erase any sense of morality or personal integrity I might have had. But I refused to let that happen. For me, it wasn't just about saying no to his proposition, it was about drawing a line that never be uncrossed. Interestingly, Baltazar didn't make any further attempts to contact me directly. Perhaps he thought I would change my mind, or perhaps he was simply used to getting his way. Either way, the silence that followed felt telling in its own right. It spoke volumes about how people in positions of power often believe their influence can extend beyond what is reasonable or respectful. In the days that followed, I also found myself grappling with a deeper question: how do we define our worth in a world that so often measures it in terms of wealth, power, and influence? I knew that I had made the right choice for myself, but the encounter with Baltazar had opened my eyes to the darker side of human nature, one that sees others as mere instruments for personal gain. As I share this story now, it is not just a personal account, but a broader reflection on the importance of boundaries, respect, and self-worth. It's a reminder that no matter how much wealth or influence someone has, the basic principles of human dignity and mutual respect should always be upheld. The experience taught me that in moments of pressure, it's easy to be swayed by the promises of financial gain or personal advancement, but true strength lies in knowing that our value is not for sale. In the end, while Baltazar's offer was bold, it did not define me, nor should it define anyone. The courage to say no, to stand firm in your principles, is a far more powerful statement than any sum of money ever could be. As time passed, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the situation with Baltazar wasn't just an isolated incident, but part of a larger, more troubling pattern that exists in certain circles of power. The notion that money can erase personal boundaries is something that seems to rear its head in various forms, whether it's in business, politics, or social dynamics. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how often people in positions of power feel entitled to demand things from others simply because they can. This isn't limited to personal relationships, it manifests in the workplace, in social settings, and even within family structures. In the aftermath of my rejection, I found myself in a strange place. While I had made my choice and stood by it, I began to wonder if I had somehow become a cautionary tale for others, someone who turned down an offer many would have eagerly accepted, but someone who would now be perceived as difficult or uncooperative in certain circles. It's a harsh reality that those who refuse to conform to the expectations of powerful individuals can often find themselves ostracized, judged, or even vilified. People who don't follow the unspoken rules are often painted as troublemakers or as people who don't understand how things work. It also made me question the true nature of relationships within such circles. In a world where so much is transactional, how can we ever know what's genuine? How do you tell the difference between someone who truly values you and someone who simply sees you as a means to an end? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that my encounter with Baltazar was a microcosm of the transactional world that many people navigate every day, where personal connections are often overshadowed by ulterior motives, where kindness and affection can sometimes be a thin veneer for manipulation. Though the offer was shocking, I also realized that I wasn't the only one who had been approached in such a manner.